one of the largest Pokemon YouTubers has decided to quit making content as he currently does. I think it's pretty interesting. Does it have parallels to some of these sports card content creators? I think it does. So we're going to talk through that a little bit today, and whether or not some of these guys are just going to flat out disappear now that's, not so easy pushing out content anymore. And then we'll also talk about some of the cards that have been buying towards the back end of this video. So please stay tuned for that. Now, if you weren't aware, Leonhart is probably one of the biggest Pokemon YouTubers, if not the biggest. He's been making content on YouTube for going on almost 10 years. He's one of those guys that sort of became front and center during the pandemic, right? When things blew up in 2020, he was sort of, the one that people gravitated towards when it came to Pokemon. That's when his subscriber count went a bit crazy. That's when his view count went a bit crazy. And he talked about in this video how it's becoming, a little bit cumbersome, a little bit tiresome to be pushing out the content as frequently as he's doing, right? He's pushing out 3 videos per week, as do I, but he's obviously finding it difficult in the sense that he's always thinking about the content. He's always thinking about how to make his videos better, what to do next, editing, all this sort of stuff. And he's getting, burnt out to the point where he's saying, I'm quitting. I can't do this anymore. Basically, YouTube is not as, fair when it comes to the algorithm as it used to be, which I'll get to in a little bit. But also he wants to just take a step back and maybe do 1 video per week, right? A live stream. And I thought this was a pretty interesting thing to talk about because I think we're going to start seeing a lot more with regards to things like this in the sports card space. I think we're going to see a lot of people within the sports card space that are primarily content creators dip away, right? That you dip down your situation because, things aren't, what they used to be 2 to 3 years ago where low effort videos were given, drastically high reward. Now, Leonhart has always put a lot of effort into his videos. So I'm not talking about him when I say that, but it's pretty obvious when you look at the sports card space, there's guys out there that had, 10, 15, 20,000 plus subscribers. And I'm not hating on these guys. I'm just painting a narrative for you guys, right? To try and talk through this and so we can have a discussion down, in the comments below, where they have these huge subscriber counts because they came when the hobby basically blew up, and these guys maybe weren't sports card collectors. Maybe they haven't collected cards for 20 or 30 years. So they started pushing out content, these low effort videos where they're talking about what cards they were buying and things like that. People gravitated towards it, they subscribed. But if you look at those same channels now, the view count is atrocious compared to what it was. A good trend for expectation on subs to views ratio is usually like 30-40% is a good thing, right? If you've got 30 to 40% of your subscriber count watching every single video within the first day or so, you're doing pretty good. Some of these guys can't even crack 5-10%. And I'm curious as to whether we're going to see these guys talk about the same sort of things that Leonhart is talking about, where the effort, now you have to put in a little bit more. It's not as easy anymore. You have to, put a lot of effort in to get the content out these days and get the views. Are we going to see some of these guys, dip away, drift away? And I think we might. And I think it's pretty obvious with some of those ones that have, already left. You already had that, sports or the PSA card collector or the graded card investor, whatever his name was. He basically put out such fantastic videos early on, and then all of a sudden he literally just disappeared. I'm not sure if anybody's heard from him, but that's a channel that, I liked. A lot of people did like as well. You had that guy called, the comeback card investor, I think his name was. He did a lot of content with Dustin from Sports Card Dad. He was one of those guys that, pushed people the wrong way quite a lot because he came across, very ignorant. He was trying to cash in on the sports card space, but he sort of leaned into that a little bit in the sense that, he was learning as he went, but he did piss off a lot of people. And he's one of those guys that, pretty clearly looking at it on face value, didn't really enjoy cards to the level that you probably need to do to push out content. And he's obviously disappeared. So are we going to start seeing, a little bit more of those? And I'm really keen if there's any others that you can think of that you think might disappear. I've had people in my comments before talk about, Dustin Sports Card Dad being someone that is had to change his content quite a bit, at least according to them. Maybe he's somebody that's slowly going to drift away because it looks as though now he's just pushing out content purely for the ad revenue, as an example. Those are not my words. Those are the words of, people that have left comments down below. But is that a thing that's happening? Maybe. A lot of these guys, like I said, Leonhart, as I touched on earlier, talked about the YouTube algorithm and how it's not as rewarding as it was, 2 to 3 years ago. So when you're putting out videos and that were getting, huge views just because nobody had anything to do, and now you actually have to act like you do care about the cards, right? A lot more than what you did in the past to push out the content, to get the views in the first place. I think that's going to be a huge turnoff. And some of these guys that do have these big subscriber accounts that aren't getting the views that they used to, that do have all these connections within the hobby, i.e. sponsorships, like with PSA, ComC, so on and so forth, that got them because they were sort of the ones that were first out of the gate. They had the first mover advantage during the boom. They got those sponsorships, and that's the only thing that's sort of keeping their channel going, right? They'll make a 10-minute video. They'll speak 3 or 4 minutes about a sponsor, right? They're just putting up the video purely for that sponsorship, even though they're no longer getting the views that they did in the past. And again, this video is not for me to hate on anyone, right? I'm just talking about some things that I've seen, some things that I've observed, right? The perception out there right now, and you go to some of these blowout posts and you'll see people talking about it. You'll go to the Facebook post, you'll see it on Instagram too. People talk about these things all the time as if some of these channels that are slowly dying don't look like they're going to be around much longer because they don't actually care about cards. And I'm really keen to get your thoughts on, who you think that might be. Like I said, people have talked about Dustin, the sports card dad, in that regard. I don't know if that is the case. He's put out some really interesting content lately with regards to some things that he's struggling with, i.e., card addiction. He's talking about, Stranger Things. I think, he's somebody that will be around a bit longer, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on this. And again, I only say his name because other people have dropped that in the comments before. He's someone that in the past I haven't thought that he was a card collector. I think he's proved me wrong in terms of recent months. And again, it's my ignorance, not anything on him. So I'm curious to see what you said or what you think down in the comments below. So again, Leonhart leaving is a pretty big thing. And I think we're going to see more of these in the sports card space, which is pretty interesting considering, you're starting to see prices come back with some of these cards, right? Not just sports cards, but also non-sports cards. Things are slowly starting to come back. I think we've found a floor for a lot of different, collectibles in this space, which highlights that, things are coming back, right? We definitely won't get back to where we were 2 years ago, 1 year ago even, but things are on the mend. So I'm surprised that we've already seen people starting to drop away or starting to think about dropping away. Let's sort of see what happens next. Now, in terms of the cards that I've been buying lately, I'll quickly show you some of those. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, I would have made some posts and I'll talk to the cards I've picked up, why I've bought them, and basically where I have bought them myself. Now, there's two cards here. I've talked about this a lot in the last few months. This is from Flawless Soccer 2015-16. I'm a huge Chelsea fan. Both these guys played for Chelsea, but I'm also a huge soccer fan. Being Italian, being Australian, soccer's pretty big here, at least, from a local level, maybe not on the international stage or even a national league perspective. But I picked these cards up from the PWCC auction. I think if you're looking for items to pick up, I think that auction is worth looking into. And now I've had people come at me for talking about purchasing of PWCC, given their, acrimonious issues in the past, i.e. shill bidding accusations and all that sort of thing. I think all those aside, if you're trying to get a PC card, I don't have a problem with you going down this path. Again, not everything is, black or white. Things are grey. I like to get a good deal, and I got these very cheap off of PWCC. I currently have them listed, even though they are my PC cards, because I think I can get a bit of a return potentially, but likely I'll keep them and then they'll come back to me here in Australia. But Bratislava Ivanovic, 9 of 25. This is, I think, just the typical, I forget what this one is called. I think it's just a traditional, vertical card. And this one is obviously pitch perfect, as it does say there. It's a pretty cool pickup for me. I love Flawless Soccer. It's an underrated set. I picked this up from Golden a few weeks ago as well. Now, again, Golden has the same sort of issues that PWCC does with regards to accusations that people have had with regards to the things those businesses have done in the past, with regards to the things I've called them out for on this channel, right? But again, you can pick up some fantastic deals at the moment. This card, was pretty cheap. I can sell this probably 10 times what I paid for it on Golden here in Australia. Initially grabbed this for the PC, but I might sell it. I talk about here grabbing it for a flip and it was PC, but I might sell it. Matt Ryan, Australian goalkeeper, he's the captain, had a phenomenal tournament at the World Cup. We made it to, the round of 16, which is fantastic. I might sell this, so it depends. Let's sort of see how things go. And then also I've talked about in the past, Select 2020 Euro. Italy won the tournament. I'm Italian. I'm going for a rainbow of every single player within the base set for Italy. So not including, the parallels, or sorry, the die cuts or the other inserts within the set. Literally just the base. I think it's referred to as the concourse cards. So I picked this Lorenzo Insigne in a PSA 9. It's a tie-dye. It is actually, I think they're out of 25, and it is jersey number. It's 10 of 25, which is cool. And then a camo prism of Donnarumma in the PSA 10 slab, which is cool. Essentially, I want to get the rainbow going. I think there's 8 cards to get, including the one-of-ones. Get them all into, I think there's 7 players in the base set for Italy. Get them all the parallels, the rainbow done for every single player. Get them in a giant frame and have that, behind me in the videos, which is pretty cool. Now, I also picked up this from Golden the other day. I got it for quite cheap. I want to give a quick shout out to the guys from Sunday League Investors because they were having a live stream going through the Golden auction. I was already bidding on this. I did message them as the live stream was happening, as he was about to bid, and I said, listen, can you leave this for me because I really, really want it for my PC. He left it for me, which is what the collecting community is all about, right? These guys are going to help each other out. This is a PC card. Barella is a very good player. Tricolor Prism, maybe overpaid in the grand scheme of things, but this is something for the PC. Like I said, it's going to go in that rainbow, and it's going to be a really cool thing to have for the collection. Now, I also picked this up from Golden. I got it quite or not as cheap as I expected it to. It's a PSA 9 Aaron Moy, very good Australian player. He actually is from Western Sydney, which is where I am from. Watched him, make his debut for the Western Sydney Wanderers, who is my local team, which is that team there, which is good to see. And I remember meeting him after one of his first games in the car park after the stadium, and he was a very shy kid, and it's fantastic to see, not only him going on to play in the Championship and then play in the Premier League within England, but he's now playing for Celtic in the Scottish Premier League, and he's, doing very, very well. He won a cup today, the Scottish League Cup, playing for Celtic, which is really cool to see. So, again, I bought this to sell, but I think in the worst case, if it doesn't sell, I'm just going to keep it for the PC. The guy's a local boy. I've met him numerous times after games, and I'm very happy to have this in the collection in the absolute worst case. I also picked this up. I've already sold it actually on Golden's Vault. Basically, won this for $7, sold it for 15. I think there's good plays on there for Golden at the moment, right? There's so many cards selling for so cheap that if you want to make a bit of money, buy them, sell them. Again, people are going to hate me for talking about buying and selling on Golden, but I'm here to try and make money for myself, to buy PC cards, to also find PC cards, to flip to other true collectors, right? And if a little bit of my money has to go towards Golden, so be it. But that does not mean that if Golden ever does anything again, for me to call him out on, like some of those 86 flea boxes in the past, like some of these other things, he has done in the past as a business and as a businessman himself, I'm still going to call them out, right? This is not a partnership or anything like that. I'm just buying cards for my PC, buying cards for my mates and their PC. I also picked up this in a 9.5. It's a promo card. Typically, I might have overpaid if you look at US prices, but card prices here in Australia are always, exacerbated. They're always multiples more than what they are in the US, and people are happy to pay them because they don't want to pay the shipping price, right? So I'll get these shipped to ship my cards, ship them home, and I should be able to make, a really, really good return, maybe 3-4x, which is what I like to do a lot here in Australia. If you look at my card show vlog from the Sydney Hobby Hangout last year, you'll see that I probably made a fair bit of money, and a lot of the cards that I bought were quite cheap that I sold for around that multiple, right? I made a really, really good profit. I think, in that video, I made a purchases preparing for the show around $2,500 AUD, if I remember correctly. It's about $2,000 US, a little bit less, and that included about $1,000 worth of PC cards. I made over $2,000 at that show, if I remember correctly. So basically, it paid for all my PC cards, plus I had some inventory left over as well, and that's how I like to do things, which is why you'll see me buying a lot of stuff like this as well. And then I also bought this, so I am chasing a PSA 9 set of Pokemon Jungle First Edition. I don't have Execute yet. This is obviously not a PSA slab, but I got this for quite cheap. Worst case, I'll sell it here in Australia like I just touched on for the others, and then also try and get it in a PSA form or do a swap with someone for a PSA 9, even though this is technically a PSA 10 equivalent. So lots of pickups there. Some more coming that I haven't shown yet, but stay tuned for that. I also picked up, this one card. I had a card show here in Sydney maybe a week or two ago. It was a very small one. I couldn't be there for very long. It's a Tim Duncan rookie. This is, I think it's just a base from EX 2001 Skybox. Again, fantastic looking cards. These are acetate. I paid right on US comps for this. Again, I don't care. I didn't have one of these on my PC, so I got it now. It's a fantastic looking card. I love those kinds of inserts, even though it's a base card, if I remember correctly, from the 90s. I think they are pretty sick to look at. And I'm not sure if I showed this yet or not either. Another Flawless Soccer pickup. This is of Diego Costa. It is, I forget which set it's called. It is the Momentous set. Dual patches. You can see there 22 of 25 on-card auto. Match-worn stuff. As I've said before, Flawless Soccer is so underrated, especially if you are a fan of a Premier League team. So you've got the likes of, Gerrard in here. You've got Harry Kane. Those guys, when they've got their match-worn stuff, even though the picture is the international jersey, the jerseys that are actually used are from Premier League matches. And what's even cooler for Chelsea is this is from, I believe, the 2015, 16 or 14-15 season, which is the year we won the title, if I'm getting those years correct. But it is match-worn from the year we won the title. So if they were actually worn in a Premier League match, Diego Costa wore this for us in his first season at Chelsea and carried us to the title, which is why this is a cool thing, to have in the PC. So that's sort of it for today. A very, very long one, 14 minutes. I hope you did like me sprinkling in, what I have been buying. I think you might see a little bit more of that. As I said in my, video a few weeks ago when I was excited about Sports Card Radio, talking about what they're buying and selling, right? Because I've often found when I've talked about this sort of stuff in the past and ways you can try and buy things for cheap to make a profit, to make a flip, and then make some money off the back of that, it hasn't really been bought into, because the things I talk about are very different to what the norm talks about. And when I say the norm, I mean, these guys that are at these card show vlogs doing things and flipping them like that, right? I like to approach things very differently. So the fact that Sports Card Radio have a pretty big following, right? We follow buying and selling a very similar way, i.e. we also buy high-end stuff, we buy low stuff, but we buy stuff to make, quick money, to fund PC stuff, even though I fund more PC than I think what they're doing. But the point I'm trying to get to is that they have a big following. They're going to try and make talking about this stuff a little bit more of the norm, which means that hopefully when I talk about it too, people might buy into it a little bit more, because when I've tried to talk about it in the past, people have shut me down or just not watched it at all, which is fine. Again, I'm going to make content for myself, but also for you as a viewer, so it is, what it is. Now, back to the very start of the video where I talked about, people that are leaving the hobby, maybe leaving content creation. Let me know who you think might leave down in the comments below. Again, I don't want to hate on anyone, right? So don't come at me for saying Dustin's name or anything like that. I wasn't hating on him, I'm just flagging it. But again, please share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you've already seen some people leave that I haven't mentioned yet, or you're starting to see the little seeds being planted on some of these guys that probably will leave in the very near future. So as always, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.